She carefully picked up the goose and took it back to the little house. There she fed a little goose from her own table and put the goose in the best basket lined with the warmest quilt from her own bed. I shall name you a good name, one that we both like, eh, my little friend? She said as she patted the goose on the head. How do you like Rachenka? Yes, Rachenka it shall be. But with Babushka's care, the goose grew stronger each day. To repay her kindness, Rachenka laid her eggs for breakfast every morning. And as the goose got better, she waddled around the little house, exploring every nook, cupboard, and corner. And one day, she jumped on top of Babushka's work table, overturning the jars of brightly colored paint that she used to color the eggs. Niet! Babushka screamed as she chased the goose with a broom. No! The frightened goose flapped its wings to get away and knocked over the basket of eggs that Babushka had so lovingly painted. The eggs crashed to the floor, shattered into a million pieces, and they both were very sad. There's no reason now for Babushka to go to the festival. Next morning, Babushka slowly got out of bed and trundled over to Rachenka's basket to get her morning egg. When she reached into the middle of the quilt, she picked out the most brilliantly colored egg that she had ever seen. A miracle, Babushka whispered, a miracle. She made small holes in both ends of the eggs and blew the yolk and white into a dish to cook and eat later for breakfast. Then she held an egg up to the morning light and marveled at its beauty. After that, every morning, for 12 mornings, there was another egg, each one more beautiful than the one laid the day before, and soon Babushka had enough eggs to take to the festival in Moskva. How wonderful, she thought. A miracle has replaced the eggs that were broken. Spring is here, my little friend, Babushka said to Rachenka the morning of the festival. Soon now, you will be flying off to the north with your flock. She bustled into the hearth fire and brewed some of her most favorite tea. She shared a softer tea with kulik, a sweet Easter bread. She covered each piece with pashka, a spread of cheese, butter, and raisins. They savored each bit together. One for you, one for me, Babushka chanted. Da-da, my little friend. I will sorely miss you, but you are a wild thing, and a miracle sent you to me, and I would not be right to ask you to stay with me forever. And when Babushka left her house, she took one last look at the goose, sitting at her doorstep. She waved, and then took determined steps to Moskva with a basket of her precious eggs. She crossed the valley where the caribou mothers were walking their newborn calves. A miracle, she thought. New little lives, a miracle. She crossed the bridge over the river, and soon she could see the onion domes of old Moskva. The festival was bright and exciting, and there were goat carts selling kulik, processions and dancers and jugglers, and laughing children playing and running. Babushka showed her old friends the eggs. The eggs were the most beautiful in all of Russia, they thought. Look at them, said the elders. They almost glow, as if the paint is part of the shell itself. The judges picked Babushka's eggs as the most beautiful, and she was so happy. She beamed as she looked at the first prize, a feather-bed quilt. As Babushka made her way homeward, a honking flock of geese flew overhead. Babushka gave them a long, lingering look. She wondered if Rachenka was one of them. And when Babushka arrived at her home that evening, Rachenka was gone, alone. She put the new quilt on her little bed. She brewed a cup of tea, ate the last of the kulik and the pashka, and got into bed with her favorite book of poems and drifted off to sleep. But she hadn't noticed Rachenka's basket. But that night, Babushka was awakened from a sound sleep by an ever so small sound that was coming from Rachenka's basket. She hobbled closer and saw a glorious egg. But this one was different than the others. It quivered and moved. It made tiny, muffled noises. The egg jumped and bumped and rolled and pitched in the blanket. And then there was a crack, and Babushka could see the very special gift that was left for her. All a miracle, Babushka said, and a little goose renamed with Babushka always. When I was talking with the kids, we talked about miracles in eggs, and sometimes we need to be the miracles. And so for our Easter egg hunt, the kids were invited to be part of our giving. During our offering, we will be giving all of our plate offering away today. It'll be divided between 3 organizations, Family Promise, Nourish New Jersey, and Peaceworks. And the kids, in their eggs, when they had an Easter egg hunt before the service. And in their eggs, there was not candy, but there was little coins, and they were able to decide which organizations they wanted to support, thus giving the children the autonomy to decide where we give our money to. So you all will be asked to give, and it'll be split up, not based on how you give, but how the children give. And we thought that was an important lesson for them to learn, to be kind of the change in there. I will say that I was glanced at the baskets, and they all look pretty evenly split. And I think a lot of the kids kind of said, oh, helping people with housing and with food and in Nicaragua all seemed equally good, so we're going to spread it out pretty evenly. So our kids were pretty good on that. So that's what we did during our Easter egg hunt that happened before here. Some of you guys probably saw that as you were coming in, or the remnants of it as well. So yeah, that's it. So we're going to collect our offering now. All of that is going towards those 3 organizations as distributed by the kids. I'm going to go count the coins now.
Please hum along this familiar tune called Common Ground. And I hope it makes you move too, because Alison said in the first service you can get up and dance too.
Or definitely clap your hands.
Yes.
On 2 and 4.
With help from Tim.
No one in 3.
Our reading today is by Reverend M. Barclay, in Fleshed. Keep your proclamations of grandeur. Give me an Easter as small as a seed, one that can be planted while it's still cold outside, one that can be watered with tears and demands time and patience to grow. I don't need to know how large it will become, how long until it blossoms, or even if it will be pretty. I only want it to grow roots that dig deep down, striving for life in the underbelly of the world. Spare me the cosmic promises of otherworldly escape, and point me to the sacred possibilities within reach. Tell me again about how the nutrients born from decay keep even the saddest places brimming with potential for life.
It is the time in our service where we honor the milestones, the joys and sorrows and transitions that have happened in the lives of our fellow congregants since we last met. Today, we'll be dropping a pebble for each milestone, signifying the way that our milestones do ripple out and touch one another. The first one is a significant milestone. We have lit a candle for Ilya Evans before, and I just want to remind you that Ilya Evans' memorial service is next Saturday, April 23rd at 2 o'clock, and all congregants are encouraged to attend, and we will also be broadcasting online. Ilya was a beloved of our fellowship who grew up here, and he was 31 years old when he passed away. And his life has made a huge difference and has rippled out in countless ways we will be celebrating next week for Ilya. Yesterday, we had the beautiful opportunity to dedicate one of the youngest among us. Some of you may be very familiar with Gavin Miles, who was dedicated right here on this spot, and he's often in this second service with a truck. He's the 2-year-old with a truck. So in honor of his parents, Marie and Bill, and in honor of Gavin, and Gavin, by the way, means godsend and little hawk or falcon. So may he soar, and may he know he is indeed a gift. Third, this is a milestone that coronavirus is up a little bit in our area. And I just want to name that there are 7 folks in the congregation that have been tested positive in the last couple of weeks. And so let us hold folks who may be positive in our hearts for continued healing. And no one has had to go to the hospital, but we know that there are others that may be in the hospital. So may they be met by loving care and compassion. And we hold today Stearns Matthews, who's amongst them. Our music director isn't here today because he's positive. So I want to thank, it's also a milestone of gratitude, that it takes a village to create our music here at the fellowship. So Beth Wilson, for always being willing, when you can, to step in on a moment's notice, and to the entire Reed Ebneth family. We are so blessed. Mary Jo, Chris, Shane, and trumpet on Easter is just about the most right thing there is. And to all the choir members and to everyone humming and backing them up today, we are deeply grateful. we have many milestones in our fellowship, and we acknowledge that some are too raw to share aloud, and others may be quiet joys. Maybe the smile of a child or a grandchild as the afikoman was found at a Seder, or as an egg was opened with chocolate in it or something that tastes good. We hold these more personal and quiet experiences as well, and we surround one another with love and with care. I invite you to join with me in a continued spirit of prayer and meditation. Spirit of life, Spirit of an abundant love, the kind of love that bursts through on an Easter morn or a Passover Eve. Move in us and through us and among us. And teach us that even on the chilliest of days, warmth might be around the corner. Even on the most sorrowful of days, new life may be peeking behind the next door. Even in a time of war and devastating loss, there are acts of courage and compassion that will rebuild anew peace, hope, community, life abundant. We hold all those who may be experiencing a loss or remembering a loss this week, whether at a Seder table, a breaking the fast in the evening table for Ramadan, or today at Easter. May these families or these individuals be met with the light of love and compassion and community, and may they especially feel that new life and the love that those who they treasured gave away is opening something possible that wasn't there before. All these things and so many more are our prayers, our meditations, and our yearnings. Amen, and blessed be one and all. And now let us rise in body and or in spirit, and let us hum along to Morning Has Broken, and the choir will lead us. couple of years ago, an inquisitive friend asked, if Unitarian Universalists don't believe in a literal resurrection, then why do you celebrate Easter? Well, I replied, we don't believe in the notion that after the crucifixion, Jesus literally, as in physically, rose up from the grave, rolled away the stone, and walked with, healed, loved, and taught his disciples once more. However, we know that because he did these very things continuously in his life, the moment of his death did, in fact, lead to a rebirth. My friend looked confused. Yes, friends, we are not confident in the Easter accounts found in the Gospels of Matthew, Luke, and John, where Jesus can literally be seen and touched and held by his disciples. The account that we turn to is the one shared in the Gospel of Mark, which originally ended in this way. When the Sabbath was over, Mary Magdalene and Mary, the mother of James, and Salome brought spices so that they might go and anoint him. And very early on the first day of the week, when the sun had risen, they went to the tomb. They had been saying to one another, "Who will roll away the stone for us from the entrance of that tomb?" When they looked up, they saw that the stone, which was very large, had already been rolled back. As they entered the tomb, they saw a man dressed in a white robe sitting on the right side, and they were alarmed. But he said to them, "Do not be alarmed. You are looking for Jesus of Nazareth, who was crucified. He has been raised. He is not here. Look, there is the place where they laid him. But go and tell his disciples and Peter that he is going ahead of you to Galilee. There you will see him, just as he told you." So they went out and fled from the tomb, for terror and amazement had seized them. And they said nothing to anyone, for they were afraid. So how do we know the story? In Mark, we are left facing an empty tomb. We don't know what has happened to the great teacher. All we know is that we are there with these women who are facing his death and the fact that he is physically gone. This is the very same story that many of us may face at one time or another in our own lives, when a relative passes away, or a dear friend, or a cherished mentor. And we have faced it collectively throughout history. So many people have testified to me that staring at an abyss, almost an emptiness, in the wake of Dr. King's assassination, or after Kennedy was shot, and right now in the wake of war in Ukraine. 10,000 people have died in the siege of Mariupol alone, and the mayor says that the death toll in that city could easily surpass 20,000. These brave souls gave everything to resist the forces of empire and tyranny. They dreamed their efforts would bring about a reign of peace once more. But now they lie lifeless in the streets. It is a winter season of the heart. What do their sacrifices for liberation and for peace mean now that they are gone? What shall their heirs do in the face of so many empty graves? Whether it is the death of one beloved or so many in this season of mourning without end, between war and pandemic, we are left literally or metaphorically in the clutches of an empty tomb. We rest in darkness, some of us not wanting to return to life as normal. Maybe some nostalgic for a glorified past that never quite existed, and possibly others fearful about the risks that could bring about further pain. The story of a seamless endless winter can arrive for any one of us individually or as part of a larger community or the larger human family. Sometimes it's the death of a loved one, and at other times it might be the death of a piece of ourselves. Maybe we've lost a job or a marriage or a firmly held belief, a piece of our identity, our health. Or sometimes we may feel we've simply lost our way. These are times where we are stripped of our illusions and must face the cycles of life, the ups and downs, that nothing is permanent, that change, including loss, is inevitable and constant. Yet paradoxically, this is what makes everything, especially our finite lives, eternally precious. Our days are numbered, and yet it isn't about counting days. A man of 30-something passed away, and here we celebrate his life 2,000 years plus later. Whether a short span or a long span, it is how we spend our days that count. It's about giving our lives away to what is eternal. It's about love without limits that stretches beyond our days and plants the seeds of tomorrow. On Easter morn, let's worry less about who rolled away the stone of the tomb of Jesus and spend more time noticing what might be binding us in 2022 to death and destruction and the proliferation of so many graves in the first place. What is holding us as individuals or as a society enthralled to tombs of the soul while we are alive? Could it be jobs that put profits over people, or relationships that we struggle to break that perpetuate the cycles of violence, or societal systems that we participate in that reinforce the haves and the have-nots, or building weapons of destruction rather than architectures of peace? Every Easter morning is an invitation to roll away the stones that bind us to the forces of death and to participate fully in this life and life itself, which is everlasting. No, none of us is everlasting, but yes, life and love are everlasting. Let us come out of the tombs of the soul that make our days seem like living deaths, and let us instead enact deeds of healing and renewal, of creativity and hope that are worthy of the promise of this hour and tomorrow. This will not always be an easy task, and often we do need to ask for the help of others, friends and mentors who have experiences of unbinding themselves from large boulders and tombs. These gracious teachers come in the form of prophets and stories of old, and in the modern day stories and testimony of those who are alive in the here and now, both near and far. Jesus was a man that we remember today because he spent his life getting truly free, unbinding himself and others from death and oppression. Again, skeptics, if you are in this room or online, don't worry so much about this particular day and whether he literally rose and moved a stone. This morning, I ask you to revisit the stories found in the Bible, and rather than wonder at the fool who would believe such fantasy, wonder at the fool who has grown too wise for myth and mystery and mirth. There is a second story we tell about the resurrection found in John's account, and this time Jesus is raising Lazarus from the dead. Jesus finds himself in a different tomb, in a cave with once again a large stone lying against it. And he asks Lazarus' sister to remove it. Her name is Martha. She is frightened to draw near death and hesitates. But they do remove the stone, and Jesus cries out, "Lazarus, come! Come out! Be free!" And then a dead man came out, his hands and feet bound with strips of cloth, and his face wrapped in cloth. And Jesus pronounced, "Unbind him and let him go." What are the traces of death that we might be carrying from a season of winter into the spring? How can we pull them off and truly feel the warmth of the sun? Today, I think about all the brave souls whose lives have been lost in Ukraine. We are in a season of mourning without end. It does not feel like spring yet. It feels right. It is a chilly day. And yet, mourning will eventually come to an end. New lives will be born, and some of these will be the children of those who are gone. Peace will be at hand, and their fellow townspeople and the inhabitants across the globe will say, "We remember them, how they lived, and why they died. And we will build upon the lessons and the legacy they left us and continue to plant seeds of life and love and liberation. Spring's seeds of hope on a chilly day that lead to summer's ripe fruits." None of us knows how long we have, and some will sadly not be able to bury the bodies of their loved ones or scatter their ashes in rituals of mourning and comfort. But each of us, right now, today, is invited to unbind ourselves from the tombs that threaten to take our souls before our time. If we muster the will to leave those places as Lazarus did, at Jesus' invitation, and to go forth, and instead of burying ourselves, bury seeds of life beneath this good earth. Right now, there is really a beautiful, art-filled, creative, hopeful practice that is happening around the world, a practice of solidarity with the people in Ukraine. Sophie Zielik, a child of Ukrainian immigrants, an artist in New York, whose craft is the Pasanki eggs, has shared about this tradition. It is said that as long as the Pasanki eggs are created with these beautiful designs, that life will go on and on. And people in Ukraine, since before Christianity, have been burying these eggs in places where they wanted to sow seeds of strength and hope and possibility and abundant life. They would scatter them in the food of their livestock so that they would grow strong and multiply. They would bury them at the four corners of a new home that was being built to ward off evil. And now, the Ukrainian Institute of America in New York, along with Sophie Zielik, is collecting eggs from all over our country, really all over the world, to send to Ukraine. And they're collecting them, and the collection is growing. It'll grow until August 24th. And then they're going to send them to Ukraine. And when the war is over, they will bury the eggs in the soil where death and destruction has been laid. They will plant belief and hope. They will plant strength and resilience. And the eggs will sow the seeds of the possibility of new life to come as they work to tend those plants and rebuild for a better tomorrow. So here's the invitation. I invite you to go buy a dozen eggs, and don't forget to blow out the yolk in the middle. We'll send instructions out. And as many eggs as we paint between today and Mother's Day, I'm going to load up a car, maybe a very big car, and drive to the Ukrainian Institute of America on East 79th Street and drop them off for that collection so that we can be a part of the prayers and the plantings for a peaceful Ukraine. If Jesus lives forever, it is because he spent the number of days he had on this earth becoming unfettered and free and unbound from the things that held him back from life. He prayed and lived and moved into the fullness of his humanity, into the spark of the divine that is in each. And in turn, he showed others the path to do the same. And he lives on each time that we take seriously the message of his life and let go of needing proof of what happened after he died to believe in him. He lives on when we roll away the boulder of creeds and simply love the world and our fellow human beings as fiercely as he did, as fiercely as Russian and Ukrainian parents love their children, as fiercely as we love ours. He lives on in our minds and hearts every time that we Unitarian Universalists affirm that with each newborn child, the world may have received one more Redeemer. Each one of you is such a child. So yes, to my friend who asked that question, and to one of our children who literally asked that question to his mother on the way to the Easter service today, and to all of you, we Unitarian Universalists believe fervently in Easter morning. The stone has been rolled away. The tomb is empty. Neither we nor those we loved and lost were ever really there in that spot. Each bud, each petaled prophet of spring is a reminder that what we have lost may be gone, and yet everything, every trace, and every deed that beloved enacted in their life leaves a mark on our hearts. And now we rise up to do the same. Happy Easter. And now let us enjoy our closing song that our choir has prepared for us to end our service. closing words are by Theodore Parker. Be ours a religion which like sunshine goes everywhere. Its temple all space, its shrine the good heart, its creed all truth, its rituals works of love, its profession of faith, divine living. Go with peace, go with joy, go with the seed of hope, and go forth and live fully this day, this hour, this moment, and your life. Blessed be.
Thank you.